Could I now call up the next panel, if you would take your seats here, and Professor Stephen Kinsella is going to come to the podium first and give some remarks. Okay? Do you want to stay there actually so you can hear his remarks first, and then as soon as Stephen finishes, you head over there and join. Go straight in. Stephen. Folks, we invite you to start.
Thank you very much. I typically start by recommending a book. And a book that I recommend that everyone reads is a book by a journalist called Joe Studwell, and it's called How Asia Works. And it's an incredible book because it's a story about comparative economic development. It takes the experience of Thailand and South Korea, of the Philippines, of Indonesia, and it applies a consistent theoretical frame to it. It's absolutely brilliant. I couldn't recommend it more. It's based on his Cambridge PhD. And what it teaches you is basically three things. The first is states prosper when they have export discipline, when they need to sell to the rest of the world. The second thing that How Asia Works teaches you is how states need to have vision and leadership and luck in order to move things forward. An example, South Korea decided to get into heavy metals and really building big factories. And everyone in the world, including the economists at the World Bank, said, do not do this. This is a bad idea. You have absolutely no experience in this. You will fail. It will be a disaster. They didn't listen to the economists. And because they didn't listen to the economists, you now have South Korean mobile phones, South Korean telecoms, South Korean satellites, South Korean cars. Leadership, luck, and the creation of vast amounts of domestic capacity to do things. That's the second lesson. The third lesson is don't listen to economists because we got it all wrong. So why are you listening to an economist talk about a computer science program now? Okay, so it's a brilliant book, but I learned a huge amount from it. And it's one of the reasons that I'm such a huge fan of the idea of us building an offshore wind capacity here on the West Coast. Not because of the renewable power it will generate, that's fantastic. Not because of the exporting of electricity that it will represent. That is also fantastic. Not because of the tens of thousands of jobs it would create. That's also fantastic. But because in order to generate a world-class capacity to actually manufacture 50 Eiffel Towers into the ocean floor, you have to be at the absolute edge of technological sophistication. And in order to do that here, you have to develop a vast national capacity to do that. It's in that spirit that I come to the development of the immersive software engineering program. Essentially, the world needs two types of people. People who can make stuff and people who can sell stuff. Who makes stuff in a world where the vast amount of wealth and value in the world is created by what is called intangible assets? An intangible asset is something like a license or a patent or a piece of software. Ireland's vast wealth at the moment comes from the tiny slice we take of the intangible assets that are being warehoused in this country. We shouldn't pretend that we create these assets. We do not. By vast proportion, we warehouse them. Warehousing is nice, it's easy, it's safe, it's also easily replaceable. What we have to do as a country is move from being a warehouse to becoming a factory where you make the things here. That is the foundation of national progress for the next 100 years of this country. The last 100 years were about catching up to the frontier. We were Europe's poorer cousin. For at least 70 of the last 100 years, the average living standard in this country was below the European average. We have caught up and substantially exceeded that. It's something that we tend to forget because we're an island nation, we're very insular in our politics. We tend to forget that we have the highest living standards and highest life expectancy in Europe. So the question is, having reached the average or slightly above it, what do we do now? Well, the answer is we go beyond. The question is how. I go back to how. People who can make stuff, people who can sell stuff. If I was going to build a business plan for the immersive software engineering program, I would simply answer 3 questions. 1, who is the customer? 2, what is the problem you solve? And 3, how is the world different after you've solved your problem? So who's the customer? The customer are the students and their parents. When I was in the HEA, we did some research. We said, why do people choose the courses that they choose? Answer number 1, do I think I'll get the points? Answer number 2, do I think I can afford it? Answer number 3, does my mother want me to do it? It's a big question, fellas. So, who's the customer? The students and their parents. Industry, particularly the economic customer within industry, the person who actually has the power to write the invoice. But more importantly, and this is something all universities inherently understand, but we tend to forget on a daily basis, the final customer is the future. Our actual job is to produce people who can secure the future for themselves and for the nation. What's the problem we solve? Immersive software engineering pushes a 5-year computer science master's degree into 3.5 years. In fact, it's 1,382 days long. It's very, very intense. We take away the summers, we take away the winters, we take away the holidays. They basically have 2 weeks here, there, and everywhere, and most of that is taken up with study. It's an evolution of the concept Professor May talked about, where we have the co-op placement, where every student gets 1 co-op placement. In immersive software engineering, you get 5. So it's more intense, therefore it rewards the ambitious. It's immersive in that we have a studio space that the students occupy as their own space. It's very, very, very focused on them. We demand very high standards from them. It's accelerated. But the other thing that it has is a very deep connection to industry. Jeff's here from Dell. Dell's one of our valued partners. When we were designing the course, we talked to Dell. Why? Because we've been working with Jeff and his colleagues for many years. We designed the course with Stripe, huge partners, John and Patrick, Jamie and Eileen, and everyone at Stripe have been hugely, hugely helpful to us. The third thing that's really important is it's a research effort. It's a master's degree at the end. So we have to have research built into the course from the start. So first-year students get courses on professional development and interview skills and so forth. Very important, because when they start in September, they're going to be out on placement in June. That's 9 months to go from some students haven't coded before to I'm working in AWS on cloud vision, right? That's not on computer vision rather. It's not a small thing. So that's the problem that we solve. We aggressively recruit the ambitious. We force 5 years of computer science into 3.5. 50% of the time you spend in industry. Students get 5 different placements in 5 different companies of about 3 months each. And finally, we have them producing new ideas by the end. That's how you produce people who can make stuff, by showing them how to make stuff. The focus is on learning by doing. And that is indeed what we do. How are things different? The final question. How are things different? If you have somebody who has the confidence to take something and make it real, that's what software engineering is. That's what all academic disciplines fundamentally are. You take something, you have an idea about it, you can make it real. It's very fast feedback processes. Things are different in the following ways. Companies get vastly better employees. That's the hook for industry. The state gets people who will enjoy living standards 2 and 3 times higher than the average. Any of you Googling what the starting salary is for a software engineer in Stripe will regret every life choice you've made. I mean it. I'm not even being funny. It's shocking. You guys are going to be fine. You're going to be fine, and you're your tax bills will shock you, but they will make us very happy. You're going to generate a lot of value for the companies that you work in and for the companies that they start. So this is the other thing. They're not just going to work in Stripe and Dell. They're going to create the next Stripe, the next Dell. And we're working with them, with our partners, with Dogpatch and Nexus and a bunch of other groups, in order to make sure that if the student's decision is to start their own company, we support them with both feet to do that. Okay, so it's a very, very important thing. Now, the difference fundamentally for me, and the reason I'm doing this, is UL is an engine of transformation. That is what it is. That's what all universities are. But UL is a uniquely special engine of transformation. If you look at where we came from, the place that you're sitting now 30 years ago is a field. The place you're sitting 20 years ago is a field. 15 years ago, this place was built. Okay? Those pitches out there are pretty new, if any of you have played on them. And in fact, good luck getting a booking, actually, to play on them, because they're very busy. UL is probably the largest economic entity in this region, depending on how you want to count it. But it is for certain the most important entity in this region, with its partner institutions. There are now 3 universities in this region. We develop an enormously innovative set of programs. And one of the things I'm very, very excited about is ISE is the first of these programs. It's not the last of these programs. We have other cool things in the pipeline I'd love to tell you about, but I can't, because that's what NDAs are for. I want to close by saying that I was asked to sort of speak to you for about an hour about ISE. And as much as it pains me, because I love the sound of my own voice, I'm not the best spokesman for this course at all. First off, I'm not a software engineer, so that's not great. But second, I don't need to be the person speaking about this course anymore. This is actually, by the way, this month is the 5th year. I've been working on ISE since February 2019. My first meeting with John and Patrick Collison was this month, the last 5 years ago. So now I don't need to be the person always speaking about it, because we have students. They exist. And that's the real buzz I get out of this course, is listening to the students. So, and they'll tell you far more about the course with far more authenticity than I can. So with that, can I please invite our students to the stage, please, and they'll have a discussion with Jamie Heaslip from Stripe. I think Jamie is a man, he needs very little introduction, really, and we'll ask the students to introduce themselves. But what's fantastic about Jamie and I is that we're both former rugby players. Jamie did a little bit better than I did, but that's okay. He's now leading on growth at Stripe, and he's taught me a huge amount about how Stripe thinks, how things move on, and we're going to do a lot of really interesting work together into the future. So with that, can I please invite to the stage Jamie Heaslip and our students? Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen. It's a good thing that I went the rugby route, you did the economics. I'm not going to be recommending any book, but I'm going to start with just something that resonates with what Stephen said, and apologies if you're sick of seeing me. I was probably in a lot of your living rooms on Saturday, so sorry about that. But what we talked a lot about is actually not getting bored of winning. Not getting accustomed to having kind of a recency bias over recent success. And I think the ISE program is a great evolution of how Ireland is approaching future thinking, future innovation, and the people who are going to create the future companies, like the next Stripe, the next AWS, the next Dell, like Stephen touched on. And these are the people who are going to do it, hopefully. And starting with Rosie and Fred on that point, when you think of the ISE program so far, Rosie, you said you were actually surprised that it was good. That was an interesting opener, particularly in front of Professor Kinsella. Can you tell me what you guys have found most exciting about the ISE program so far?
Yeah, well, I feel that the residency aspect of it is by far the most interesting part, because you go on 5 different residencies over your time, so you get to go into so many different parts of software because it can be injected into anywhere. And on top of that, you gain so much confidence within yourself once you're actually in industry, because it's pretty daunting at first. You're like, okay, I'm in first year. I just finished like 9 months of classes, and now I'm actually going to be working within a company. But then within that, you get to apply your skills, and you learn so much. You learn like technical skills, but on top of that, like interpersonal ones, and how to communicate and to cooperate within a team. It's just fantastic. So I would say that's by far the most, exciting and innovative part of the course for me.
For me personally, as Professor Kinsella mentioned, there's a real focus on the residencies, but it's also, there's the opportunity for entrepreneurship, for making your own company, your own impact, to make your own Stripe and Dell. I'm in first year now, I only joined in September. I had been in ISE for about a month and a half, and ISE hosted the NDRC Sprint at our building. It was a startup sprint for people to come together, get the opportunity to meet like-minded people, to bring together ideas. It was really an accelerator for how to bring your idea to the fold. For a first-year student just starting software engineer, to be already meeting these people with 2-3 businesses already under the belt, to be able to network with these people, to get the opportunity to see what the future could have the inspiration to say, oh, that's a really good idea. I could do that. I don't know any other course which gives that much opportunity for not only how to work in other companies, but to make your own and to make your real own impact on the future. So that was daunting, as Rosie said, a bit surprising. These are very capable people. Do I really deserve to be here? But I think ISE makes it so you definitely do. You can absolutely stand among these greats. So that's it for me.
That's a nice little segue into my question for Darren Connor about, you guys started a startup called Second Chapter while in the ISE. Tell us a bit about that, and how, do you believe there's benefits of being a founder while still being a student?
Yeah, 100%. So we started Second Chapter, which is a mobile platform for buying and selling textbooks in schools. And we aim to save families money while promoting sustainability. 100%. There's loads of perks to being a founder while being a student. I mean, for one, you're surrounded by this incredible pool of talent and resources on campus. If you ever have a question or need feedback on something, there's always someone you can go to. I think time management is definitely something that's a bit of a challenge sometimes. Balancing kind of working on a startup with your studies can be challenging, but if it's something you can master, it's something that's going to stand to you in the long term.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's definitely something it can be tricky to balance between the two, but there's for sure benefits. Even just in terms of the content we get to cover in the course. In first year alone, we did things. Our assignments ranged from building a small game to developing a full web application, and those skills definitely stand to you when you start a company. Obviously there were things we had to learn ourselves along the way, but I think the foundation provided to us by ISE was great to build from.
And Rosie, can you tell us a little bit about the team?
Yeah, so the story behind the team, Dara came up with the idea for Second Chapter, and he'd been involved in startups beforehand, so he kind of had that business mind side of things. And then he approached Connor to be his co-founder, because Connor kind of had the technical skill set that Dara wanted in a co-founder. And at one stage they approached me because they wanted an animation for a video that they were entering for a competition. And I was like, yeah, that's really cool. You're doing this amazing work. And they're just lovely guys. So of course I wanted to get involved and work with them. And from there, I just started doing more design work, and I got brought on as creative director. So it's just kind of grown from there, and it's fantastic.
And kind of this for you, Dara, what drew you to the idea and the problem itself? Like, is it a love of solving with technology, the problem, a mix? Did you see a challenge that wasn't getting solved?
100%. I think it's definitely a mix of both. For one, the challenge itself as students, dealing with the cost of managing textbooks is something we had dealt with. Students worldwide are spending hundreds of euros per year on textbooks. So being able to save families money was definitely a big aspect of it. I think also there's the sustainability angle. So textbooks themselves aren't the most eco-friendly things, and generally students are only getting maybe a year or two out of them. So being able to cut down that was a massive aspect additionally. And then I think beyond that, myself and Connor and Rosie are all tech enthusiasts. I think being able to solve problems with these novel solutions is really exciting, and to be able to save money and the environment on top of that is a really attractive idea.
I hope you're using Stripe for that as well, by the way.
We are.
But
We are.
that's good. Shareholders will be happy. I can report back to John later. So tell me, Fred, a little bit more about what drew you to the field of the immersive software engineering program.
So I suppose even since I was a kid, I've always been interested in computers and technology. My dad would always, 3 or 4 years old, be playing Microsoft Paint on his computer, drawing all the shapes. And I think he recognized that and said, okay, he seems interested, he seems to enjoy it. So he brought me into Coder Dojo, which is an initiative in Ireland for teaching kids how to code, giving them kind of fun, easy, interactive ways to write a bit of code. You drag the pieces in, and then you can see the effects in front of it. And I really enjoyed that, really fun. I did that for a couple of years, and then kind of grew away from it a while, kind of got a bit old. And then the one that really made the difference for me was here in UL. They run a program called Cybercamp, which is a multi-day course where kids can come in, teenagers, I think it was 13, 14, and they basically just spend 2 days trying out technology. I learned different types of coding language, messing around with microcontrollers, learned how to solder on a circuit board, and from there I just realized, oh, this is exactly what I want to do. It was the problem solving, the mathematical analytics. You're thinking so hard, it's struggling with a problem, you think, I don't know, and then you find that solution and you think, yes, I want to keep that buzz going. And so from there, while at the Cybercamp, I was introduced to Java. I began to do that in my own time, working on little personal projects. And from there, it's just really grown. And then I heard about ISE on the radio, and I thought, that is exactly how I want to do it. The idea of going on work placements from your first year, not focusing on the theoretical, the abstract, real at your work you can actually see the impact of, that just really drew me into it.
Now, Professor Kinsella talked about how much he's ramming into 3 years, 1,000+ days? Is that what you said, Stephen? Seems like it's pretty intense. You're all nodding with an agreement there. Have you got time to engage with activities outside of the ISE program and on campus, be it hobbies, side projects, societies? Does Stephen let you have fun? Is the real question I'm asking.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be honest, you'd need that. You match your ISE with your time off, the downtime that helps you relax. With all the clubs and societies I have, in addition to ISE, I basically have no free time at all. I'm in outdoor pursuits, the badminton club, sub-aqua. I'm a member of the committee for the Wind Sports Club, that's sailing and windsurfing. We had the IUSA Southerns down in Dingle last weekend. We got to meet all the different universities, great sailing event or team racing. And then next week we'll have the InterVarsities down in Skull. And so that's brilliant opportunities. The idea of just mingling with the different universities, seeing how they handle their clubs and societies, seeing how they treat the different courses. It's been really, really enjoyable. And really sorry to Mr. Kinsella now, I would see the clubs and societies as almost more important in your college life than the course you're doing. That's where you really build yourself as a person, where you get to meet the friends that you will have for life. I will no longer be allowed into the IC building after this now, but I think it's worth standing for. In addition to all them, there's always some side project I'm working on at the moment. Currently, I'm making an inventory management system for a company called Smart Factory. They're a local Irish company. It's Yeah, and then
That does not sound like a little side project to me.
it started off a little, and then scope creep begins to get a lot worse as it goes on. But it'll be done in the next 10 to 12 years.
The sportsman has to ask who won at the weekend, what university won. Did UL take the winnings when was it sailing, you said?
UL are not the strongest with the sailing, unfortunately. Trinity came first and second.
Well, seeing Trinity is my club, I'm delighted.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, moving on. So, Connor, second chapter obviously has been a big part of the last year for you. What have you learned about the entrepreneurial side of that journey?
Yeah, I mean, a huge amount. Dara had a lot of experience with startups before starting second chapter, and I wasn't quite the same, so there's a lot of catching up to do. I think the great thing is there's a huge number of resources available, especially as a UL student. So like last year we attended a few events run by the Consulting and Entrepreneurship Society, which was a great opportunity to see or to learn more about the startup ecosystem in Limerick. And then after that we were lucky enough to take part in the NDRC Pre-Accelerator program, which was a fantastic learning experience. They went through kind of a lot of the common pitfalls you might come across as a new company, and like went through all the skills you need to be a success. I think one big learning experience came when we were first trying to engage with schools. We found that because schools are quite risk averse, it kind of required more time building up relationships with the key stakeholders to make sure they kind of trust you as founders as well as the product itself.
And this is kind of framed at you as well, Rosie. What do you think? Do you think software engineers are? It's a good foundation for being good entrepreneurs from your experience that you've had now.
I think definitely 100%. I think ultimately the skills you learn as a software engineer are very transferable to all kinds of different domains. And like really it's just problem solving, and like problem solving can be applied to basically anywhere, including entrepreneurship. I mean, like for example, or like quite often you'd have very different problems, but like you could have similar ways of approaching a solution. Like for example, it could be taking a problem and breaking it down into smaller parts and then dealing with those individually.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Connor. Like, it does expand your way of thinking and helps you in the problem-solving side of things. I feel like another benefit is that as a software engineer, you're so immersed in the tech world. You do have that business advantage, especially since so many startups nowadays are tech-focused.
And you learn anything good in economics along the way as well, by any chance, or?
We have like business. We'd have like some modules focused on business and innovation and just kind of like how companies work and how to prepare yourself and conduct yourself in a professional setting, but not so much focused on the economic side of things as of yet.
I'm just trying to give a shameless plug to Stephen. So for what's next? Dara, Connor, what's kind of next for you guys going forward? Like how has traction been? Tell me a little bit more about that.
So traction's been good. The main goal for the next couple of months is getting second chapter rolled out into the hands of as many schools as possible. At the moment, it's particularly in the Kerry and Limerick regions. And then we're currently on track to have it rolled out in a number of schools by this summer. So that's kind of a very exciting time. And then also, I think in the future, one thing we're really excited about is the prospect of getting involved with universities. I think it'd be a great opportunity. So it's very, very exciting times ahead.
And I'll wrap on this question. What's just kind of on the excitement piece, as you're all kind of early in your journey in the program. When Professor Kinsella kind of puts the carrot up of the opportunity that's at the end of this chapter for you, what has you most excited over the next couple of years in terms of what you're learning? Go across the board here. Start with you, Connor.
I think the great thing about ISC is the mix between kind of entrepreneurial skills and like pure tech skills. I think it sets you up really well to either go into a career as a software developer or like as a project manager or something, or start your own company. So I think it's the mix of the two.
Yeah, I feel for me, I think ISC provides us with the skills and foundation and confidence just to build and create, and with that you can really go into any sector. Like I kind of chose ISE because I had so many interests. Like I was interested in biology and medicine, but also art and geography and geology. And I was like, well, you know, with technology, you can kind of go any which way and you can kind of hop between sectors. So I think that's like one of the most exciting things that ISE, you know, offers, that flexibility.
Yeah, 100%. Like kind of building off that, I think what I'm most excited about is that regardless of what kind of avenues I go down in the future, whether that's continuing with my own startup or with working in a company, I know that I'm going to be prepared and be able to kind of deal with the challenges they're going to face.
I think for me personally, it's the potential of where I'm going to go. I've only been here for a couple of months. At the end of the 9 months, I'll be already prepared to go off for an industry partner. After 4 years, where is that going to lead me? Having done 5 full residencies, 3.5 years of an accelerated course with some of the best lecturers in the country, I think what the person is going to make me and how it'll influence me as a software developer, that really excites me, and I'm really looking forward to where that'll end up.
Well, it's definitely left me excited in terms of our future being in very good hands. But so I would just, if any questions from the audience before I wrap to the great minds up here? No? On.
Jamie, I have just, Professor mentioned the mothers of Ireland, and I happened to be in a home at the weekend where there were 3 children, and they spent all their time, you know, on their iPads, etc., etc. So, do you think that's good, say, for the kids that are coming up? These were ranging in age from 7 to, and lo and behold, there was a baby that I watched doing this. You know,
That's my 2-year-old pretty much there, yeah.
So my question is that what should be happening in the homes, or, you know, is that good for the children, do you think, as young people, kind of being part of that system?
For me, it would be all about balance. You know, I was definitely an iPad kid, as we're so gladly labelled nowadays. I grew up with computers, playing games with the friends, but my mum always gave me the real focus on you need to have the balance. You know, spend your time on your computers, you learn your programming, you play your games, but then also have to focus on outside and sport and activities and meeting with friends. So I wouldn't see any issue with having kids playing with technology, because technology is important. It's really important. We need to be digital natives, to be comfortable around technology, be able to bring that into the future. But it's also so important with the clubs, societies, every sport. It's so important to be able to focus on other things and to be able to be ready for the outside world. So definitely for balance, it's me.
Yeah, I definitely agree, where you just be a well-rounded kid, but that kind of introduction to technology and being comfortable with it and being exposed to that kind of like spark of like, whoa, this is really cool, that's incredibly invaluable. Yeah.
I don't think these kids are ever going to face or remember dealing with dial-up tones. So, but yeah, I think personally, from with 2 young kids, that's the world they live in, and they have to understand that and deal with the balance about that. But anyway, moving on. I'm not sure who is taking over from us next. Martin?
Yeah, great, thanks. If you stay where you are, guys, and I think in your conversation there, what you were saying, Jamie, and thanks very much, guys. I really liked what you were saying. I have a son the same age as you in Trinity, so I identify with smart guys like you. But what you were saying there, Jamie, I think you're going from the world now of digital natives to the world of digital creatives, which are you know. You can use that, Stephen. I won't charge. I allow you full usage. I think since we're on the subject, you know, Jared O'Neill is with us. Jared, could you stand up there? I was chatting to you earlier. Sorry, Jared O'Sullivan, sorry. I know so many Jareds. Jared, your son, Sean O'Sullivan, won the BT Young Scientist of the Year. So on behalf of all of us, we'll meet him later, congratulate you. But what is interesting for me, like the Collison brothers, is where is the secondary school system? Like in Coláiste you have this big focus on STEM. Could we get a mic, please, to Jared? Or do you want to come up here?
I can still move.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Martin. Actually, one question before I speak that I would have loved to put to the panel is just looking at yourselves and maybe anecdotally your cohort, and without mentioning your schools, I'd be very intrigued to know to what level your school experience has impacted maybe on the skill set that you have, the interests you have, and how many and the flavour of your course. You know, as a school principal, I think it's intriguing the opportunity we give, but just for yourselves, if one or two of you want to take it, I mean, do you see a noticeable or perceptible link between your school experience and all of you that have ended up on this course?
For me, there was a pretty heavy emphasis on physics and maths in my school, but not so much on computer science, which was interesting. But I think definitely that that emphasis on physics and maths probably pushed me towards a STEM course to some extent. And I think probably the computer science is becoming more widespread in secondary schools now, and I'd say I might be the only one. I don't know if you had computer science, but some of us would have just missed out on it as it was coming in.
Yeah, like unfortunately my school didn't offer computer science at the time, so I was kind of doing, you know, a broad range of topics. I was doing like science, geography, like art as well. So that's kind of where I got like broad interests. But I feel what was extremely beneficial in my school was the extracurricular activities. Because for a brief stint before COVID actually hit, we had a robotics club, and you actually like gained confidence in coding and actually like building a robot as well, which is just really cool. So I feel like different spaces that you can have in school just to encourage, you know, building and making and creating within kids is extremely beneficial.
Yeah, 100%. I think our school, as I was kind of finishing up, was beginning to get more engaged with the STEM side. We just started doing computer science as a subject. It was very exciting, and they've kind of embraced the all sides of STEM. We had 3D printers brought in classes on that. I think particularly for me personally, in TY we had individual classes dedicated to doing things like BT Young Scientist and SciFest, and that was where I got my first kind of introduction into the world of technology, STEM, and business as a whole.
Yeah, so for me, same as much as the others, no computer science in our school yet. I had to go outside of school, went to another school to do computer science as grinds, and I think it's really good that it is coming in as a leaving certificate subject. It's really comprehensive course, gives you a good foundation, and gives you the real interest. There's a lot of focus on the project and making an actual artifact that you could stand and say, hey, I made this. This is something that I created with my own hands over the 2 years. So I think as more and more schools take up that subject, begin to teach it, I think it'd be really beneficial for software engineering across the country.
Yeah, thanks guys. That's actually very interesting. Very interesting for me as a principal. So the types of things that are happening in education, our school, I'm 22 years in my school this year, and our school, fortunately, primarily like UL, and I'm a past pupil, I'm a graduate of UL, our own school, it's the people in the organisation that makes things happen, and we were very fortunate to have an excellent computer science teacher from the very start, actually, Conor Power. He led out a lot of the national in-service. So as a school, we were very, very fortunate. We're in a brand new building, 2.5 years old, and we took the opportunity to take and reclaim a space in our school. We took our second, if there's any art teachers here, we took our second art room and we built it into a STEM lab. And apart from Sean's project this year, Aidan and Taha, our two students that won the senior category, did exactly what was the vision of the STEM lab. They went into a lab with an idea, they 3D printed enclosures, they soldered all of the electronics, they coded it, and they came out with a product that actually won a senior category. So that's the type of things that we're trying to do in schools. Since 2012, the junior cycle offered a lot of scope for schools to be innovative with their curricula. And in our case, since 2018, and it was born out of a study that I'd actually done, a master's that I did in Mary I, which was really the challenges of empowering the next generation around STEM and tech-related careers. And the biggest single inhibitor is early experience. And any of us that come from, any one of us that have excelled in given areas have had someone along the way that inspired us. So for all the adults in the room, in schools we have the term of one good adult. All it takes is just one good adult. It can be your parent, it could be an aunt or an uncle, or it could be a teacher, typically for a lot of us, who inspired us and just found that spark. So in our school, all of our students in first to third year study STEM for 2 periods a week as part of a short course. And it's not that we want all science and tech individuals, but it's just to give people the opportunity. So just like we have kids who find their passion in the arts or in sport, we do too with yourselves. So that's the type of thing that's going on in education. But really on the ground, the hardest part in education right now is, and for schools the length and breadth of the country, and I would say the single biggest challenge as to why schools can't deliver maybe like of computer science, and that is just to get teachers who are qualified and able in that area. It's very hard to compete. I just Googled the starting salary there of a software engineer in Stripe, so I can tell you it's absolutely multiples of anyone with a skill set who might consider going into teaching. So those are the challenges, but the length and breadth of the country, I mean, I spent the week at BT, or the half week at BT this year, and to say that, you know, as a school we were very fortunate and did well there, but the margins are so fine, because just like all of the people at the top table here, all working hard and very clever people, it's the very same in BT, and it's the same in business. You're dealing with, you know, everyone is very equal and the margins are so fine, and it's fantastic. But the ISE course is exceptional, and it's a credit to everyone who has created such an innovative course, and as a principal it really, really excites me. And as a secondary school principal, I just see, you know, the focus really needs to be on primaries, secondary, and the universities and beyond. And the partnership, from our point of view, I was talking to James, my deputy is here with me, and we were just talking. One of the biggest strengths for us, and maybe it's largely business here, is the opportunity to get our kids out and into businesses for the likes of work experiences. And that sometimes can be a hard thing, because it has been certainly through COVID. But for you as business people, it's the single biggest thing that you can actually do for us as schools and for our kids, is to give that opportunity just to make that spark. So well done, and thank you, Martin, for the opportunity to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Now, if I could stay on actually the theme of the BT project, because if I recall correctly, and I'm not a techie, so I'm the dumb guy in the room, so correct me if I'm wrong, but as I understand it, Sean's project was creating a way of, through ChatGPT, to check if authors had done work themselves or had used AI to help, okay? So I'm saying to the 4 students here now, and let me check, I'm saying to you, let me see, so it's Fred, Dara, Rosie, and Connor. Yay. I did good. Okay, so guys, pretending now that Professor Stephen Kinsella is not in the room, okay? And pretending that Jamie is not next to you, right? How much of your work are you doing yourselves, and how much, being the smart guys you are you using AI, etc., to help? Okay, so we have a volunteer. Okay, Connor, go for it.
I think in some ways people will be surprised how little people use ChatGPT. I think it depends on the course a lot, but in software anyway, it's good for certain things, but I think with how it is at the moment anyway, it is still kind of limited. But I'll let the others answer for themselves.
Okay,
I
Rosie.
feel like ChatGPT is more like a tool that you use to help you work. For example, I use it primarily when I'm facing lots of bugs in my code, or I have errors in the terminal, and I'm like, okay, what can you explain what's going on here? How can I fix it? And it's just kind of using prompt engineering and a different kind of way of problem solving to get the answer that you want, just to speed it up, and so you're spending less time pulling out your hair going like, why isn't this working? I have so many other things to do, and you just kind of, you use it as a tool to help you work. It's not, doing your work for you. That would be my answer.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with Rosie. It's ChatGPT and other AIs, they're a tool to help you get there. You know, you wouldn't go into Microsoft Word and say, oh, spell check wrote that for you. You know, it's tools like these, they're very good for, like you said, for debugging, especially for coding has lots of different languages. There's lots of kind of certain software is made to do certain things. And so AI is very good to help you explain something or to help you get up to speed. You know, you have the general knowledge. It gives you the specific words that you need to use to get it done. And it's very good for finding something's gone wrong with this. How do I get there? But certainly an AI could not pass ISE. It would not be able to make it through. It's that vision, that problem solving that humans will always have over the AI that really gets, that it's the human edge that really doesn't let AI yet get there.
Okay, thanks for it. Dara?
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree. I think ChatGPT is a tool, and it would be kind of foolish just to shrug it off and say, oh, it's kind of a trendy thing for people to kind of cheat on their exams or anything. I think 100% for debug purposes, it's very helpful in the course. But if you went into it and said, generate me a website for this project, you're not going to get very far. So it's definitely, there's a skill set to using it.
Well, of course, we know here in UL, thanks guys, that there would be nobody using AI to produce research or thesis or anything like that, Nigel, of course. Actually, we're lucky today we have Professor Patrick Paul Walsh. Do you want to say hello, Paul, and explain your role? Because you're seconded now from UCD with the United Nations on Sustainable Strategy Academy. Do you want to just talk, and what you heard particularly, and Dara was particularly, if I recall, talking earlier about sustainability, you know, so you're not just solving problems, but you're doing good at the same time. Although, as Jamie said, everyone needs to use Stripe more, but that's in the background. Paul, please.
Yeah. So this is not prepared, so you caught me on the hop. But
do you want to stand up so
yeah,
people
okay.
can actually see you? Thanks.
So my name is Patrick Paul Walsh, called Paul, long story. So I'm actually a professor in University College Dublin in the School of Politics and International Relations, but I'm on secondment to a thing called the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network with responsibility for the education portfolio called the SDG Academy. So my first thing, obviously I know Stephen very well, both economists, so it's great to see that blend of what I call science, practice and policy, right? So that wasn't emphasized a lot, but I think you probably are grinding in them a way forward in terms of the application in industrial development and innovation. That's in your opening talk. So that didn't come out on the panel, but I know that's in this course, and I think you mentioned it a little bit about project management, etc. So that's good. The second thing I was delighted to hear, what we do in our open education resource development is that we basically have a mandate to make sure that things are open, but also that they push sustainability and inclusiveness, right? So you don't want to innovate or produce any product or service that is knowingly damaging or exploiting society somewhere in the world, or knowingly damaging nature, right? So it was great that you emphasized, I forgot the guy there, Dara, yeah. It was great that you emphasized that you had this, you felt there was something for sustainability, but also that was giving back to society, or that, you know, making education resource that a little bit cheaper for people, right? So the one thing I would say is, in the UN at the moment, there's a Summit of the Future coming up in September, and one of the big topics is this Global Digital Compact, and it's really about the ethics of innovation on this digital transformation road. And it'd be interesting to embed that in your course, that rather than just you having those sort of ethical feelings as a young person, that you would really, you know, put this into the DNA of your innovation, right? That you're purposely making sure that the nature of what you're doing will always be for society and care of nature, and make money, no problem, but not to divert it into other things, right? Like drones for war and all this, right? Which I'm sure you'd be great at, right? And then the last point I'm just going to make is in November 2019, the world signed up to a thing called the OER recommendation in UNESCO. So this is open education resources. So they said education resources for sustainable development, or for education in general, should be free for all levels of learning, from preschool to what they call K-12, we call it primary, secondary, to university and lifelong learning. Okay? So my understanding of your second chapter is you're trying to, you know, they're like second handbooks, I guess, right? But actually the world said that at first hand, all education resources should be free. And the Academy has a committee at the moment with UNESCO where we're working hard to try and get all the textbooks and all higher education into the library repositories of libraries all over the world, so that that can be the foundation stone for education and distance education, or for any. So
Thank you.
congratulations to the panel and Martin.
Thank you very much, Paul. Much appreciated. And actually, recently, the Chinese embassy partnered with UCC to open up all the digital archives. So there's a big push now to do everything online. What Stephen was saying earlier as well about Korea, let us all not forget that it was a somewhat elderly Korean president who didn't understand it but saw the opportunity, who said to younger teams in Seoul that he wanted Korea to have the movie success of Hollywood and the drama success and music success of the West End. And as you can see, look what Korea is doing now with K-pop and K-drama, you know. So it's about that vision and leadership and then people to deliver it. Hideo-san, moshi nanika chotto daichi encho, nanika ikitai desu. Chotto, can I ask you, you're from Japan. This is, everybody, this is Mr. Hideo Yura, who's the Director General in London for Japan External Trade. Please welcome him. And now, what are your impressions? Because you're working a lot now with JETRO on the whole innovation startup ecosystem. What's your impression listening to these fine young representatives of the ISE program?
First, thank you very much for inviting me to here and have a chance to speak to you. I was very excited to hear and listen to the panel, and my first impression was, oh, Japanese students don't speak like this. They're very shy and they study well, but they don't discuss their future in the universities. So congratulations for your good experience in the universities, and also you have a good, very good connection with business people in the country. And digital technology is a key issue for the new startup companies. Very important point is we can introduce this IT technology to real world, and especially for the Japanese companies, they are still good at producing products, materials, and machinery. So putting into this technology to IT technology to the production of these products are very interesting and important program for us. So you talked about many different ranges of studies and researches interested in you, and that's very good next step to introduce these technologies. Thank you.
Arigato gozaimasu. Thank you. And I would say that you have Mark. Do you want to make a comment? It's Mark O'Connor from Mitsui. Mark is the head of Mitsui in Ireland. We'll overlook the fact you're a Galway man and it's a Cork man asking you to talk in Limerick. But Mark, have you any observations on what you're?
Really, it's the passage of time. You know, I mean, I was fortunate even back when I was going to school that we did have computers. We had a PDP-11, and it was the base of digital equipment in Ireland at the time. And out of digital, people were well trained in a relatively narrow IT world, maybe, but they were well trained. And then when digital folded in Galway, they were actually well paid as well. So they went out in later careers and established a lot of other entrepreneurial entities and did actually quite well out of it. But it's great to see that from your stage. I mean, back in my day when people were doing IT, it was the extrovert IT person was the person at a party who spent their time looking at somebody else's shoes. That was the definition of an extrovert back then. But it's great to see that from this course, from the very early stages, the mixture of, as Paul put it, there's business there, there's IT there, there's a sense of society there. So it's absolutely fantastic that going forward, this is the starting point. I remember Bill Gates was asked about the computer, can it go any further? And he said, no, the work that we finish with is the starting point for Jamie's 2-year-old and the iPad. So where other people finish is where you guys start. And I'm delighted to see that where you're starting is so exciting. You've obviously got the IT bits, but you've got the broad bits, you've got the communication bits. It's very impressive. It sounds like a wonderful course, but it just is exactly where we need to be going, of bringing everything together. And I wish you all, I don't think you need luck. I think you're well on the way, and congratulations to all of you and to the course as well.
Jamie, have you a comment?
No.
Okay, so, and let's not forget, let's look at scale. We'll get into numbers and things. President Kirsten May mentioned it earlier, but whatever you're doing, Ireland's all about niche. We're a small country, so whatever we do, it has to be top-end niche, be it product or service or managed solutions. But never forget that if you want to see the best customer service in the world, I'm biased obviously, but I'm going to say it anyway, just go to Japan. Any service in Japan. If you've been to Japan, it'll change your life. Japan is a world where if the subway train is a minute late, everyone gets a little slip at work to explain why it's a minute late, And the reason is it's the biggest city in the world, 36 million people in Tokyo, and sometimes the train connections can depend on 20, 30 seconds. So if things go out of sync, there's absolute chaos. So how do the Japanese manage that so well with no accidents? Why is this so advanced? And any service in Japan. In Japan, when you go on the bullet train, the conductor comes in and he bows and he apologizes for disturbing your harmony to check your ticket. And he again apologizes when he leaves. So go beyond, much as we're Westerners, go beyond Ireland and Europe and America, see the big world. Yeah? In China, Z Park in Beijing has approximately 45,000 startup companies at any given time. And they're managed by Alibaba and PDD, that is now Temu, and all these giant e-commerce companies. Have you heard of PDD? The largest online food e-commerce platform in the world, set up by 2 engineers, one people like you, because they were annoyed that in the villages their relatives were getting poor prices for fruit and things. So they said, why don't you come together? We sell it together, get people buying together. The last year they put, I think I'm probably out of date, it was maybe earlier, they put something like 100,000 digital farmers, as they call them, through courses. And then the year after, that was 3 years ago, the year after they decided to put 70,000 female digital farmers through courses. And they're huge. They're now competing with Amazon. In America, you've heard of Temu, a global headquarters in Dublin. So there's a lot going on, Look what's happening with TikTok, 3,000 people. There's a lot happening in tech. Look at the Koreans, look at the Japanese giants. So there's a big world out. Look at India. Look at all the smart people who come out of, the Indian Institutes of Technology, many of whom lead the big global companies in Silicon Valley. So it's a big world out there, guys. I'm conscious of time. I've done my bit up to the deadline, and I did promise earlier. Eileen. I said we're not going to mention Cork, despite pressure from Dennis Barry. But when I heard earlier, Fred, you were on about Coder Dojo, and then you were on about, Skull. I have to say the pressure's on completely here, because Coder Dojo, of course, was an amazing creation, and it's gone all over the world. Set up again by a young student like you, working with some others, and of course, and actually, Fred, do you know Paul O'Donovan and Fintan McCarthy?
Yeah.
Have you met them?
Not personally, no.
Why did you think they won gold medals in the Olympics? What can you imagine was the the sheer character behind that? Why?
I think drive. I think it was ambition. It was the urge to always want to do more, to think, I can do better. It's, the real focus on, I'm not at my full potential yet.
And sheer grit, sheer hard work. Stephen recommended an excellent book earlier. I'll recommend an excellent movie if you haven't seen it. It's called The Boys in the Boat. In true story, 1936, a team of 8 with an extra colleague, let's say 9, very poor boys, 1936. A lot of poverty in America. And they went to Washington State University and they beat all the Ivy League universities. They were selected to the Olympics and they won against the best teams in the world. And that will teach you a lot about grit and determination and hard work. And they won primarily because they were more hungry than everyone else. And when the elite kids got tired, they just kept on going. You know? Something that Jamie can identify with, I'm sure. Keeping going, Jamie, of course.
You sound like my father right now, Mark.
I'm probably.
My
I'm
dad
honoured.
was in the army, and one thing he beat into me mentally, not physically, was that talent is nothing without discipline. When I played, there was a lot more talented kids who came through the system but weren't willing to work. And I think people who win are people who are obviously very talented, like these individuals, but then they're forged through experiences and hard work. And that's how you create, in my opinion, not stripes, in my opinion, how you create great individuals.
Look, what better note to finish on? And no, I didn't mention Cillian Murphy from Cork and his great hard work and success. Look, I'd like to thank everyone. I'd like to thank you, Stephen. That was really fantastic positioning and great opening. I'd like to thank Jamie, you for chairing a fantastic group of students. And I repeat, the students are, I think, from your right to left. So we're looking at Fred Shepherd, Dara Newsom, Rosie Kennelly, and Connor Callanan. Is it? Thank you, everyone. We're going to break for half an hour. See you back here at 11:30. Thanks very much.